Hello, this is Carrie Fell. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm weaving tea towels, and I tried something different in this set of tea towels that I didn't do in the last set. And that is blending the warp colors to give a little dimension and sparkle to it. I've done this before. This is a sample of a warp-faced runner that I wove last year, and you can see that in each color section I used 2 or 3 colors, and even in this sort of background area, this area here, I've got 2 colors of blue. And I think this kind of gives the weave a little bit more dimension than if I just woven in solid colors. This is a tea towel that's the precursor to what's on the loom right now. I just tied on to this warp with different colors. And each of these warp stripes is a solid color. In the current project, I decided instead of doing solid yellow, solid orange, solid rust, that I would put 2 colors mixed together in each stripe of the warp. So we've got a yellow and a mustard. The blues are 2 different colors of blues. It's kind of subtle. There's the mustard and an orange. Here's the orange and a peach, this one here. And then this one is like a tomato red and the peach. And I decided to thread it randomly so we wouldn't see a pattern of light, dark, light, dark. So as a result, we have this sort of random sparkling here. Now these 2 colors here are close enough together in value that you can barely see the two, the distinction between the 2, but it does give a nice lively sparkle in the woven product. Same with this one. I really love the effect. The yellow is a little more obvious, the distinction between colors, but still works really well. Where it doesn't work as well, I'm finding, is in the center section with the tomato red and the sort of salmon or peach color. And I think the colors are too different in value, and that's what's causing the distracting lines. The weft is also very similar in value to this warp stripe, so as a result the pattern is lost. From a distance, I'm finding that it almost looks like a threading error. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind in the future. When I wind my warp 2 at a time, or 2 or 3 different colors at a time, I'm going to try to keep the colors in the same value range. Even if they're in the same color family, they need to be in the same value range in order to give the look that I'm going for. I'll look at these again once they're off the loom, all the different ones with the different wefts, and see what has been the most successful and what I can change for the next project. Okay, 16 tea towels, all woven, hemmed, and pressed, and the label sewn on. So each one of these 16 towels was done in a slightly different way. Okay, there's a couple of pairs. The tea towels with the boucle I made in pairs of 2, and they're the ones with the different plain weave sections in them. So there's a couple of white ones and a couple of red ones, deep red, burgundy, and a couple of blue ones. Now it's interesting to see what a different look you can get just by changing up the weft like that. The warp is exactly the same. This one here is the bobbin cleanupper towel. So basically use the rest of the bobbins, what was left on them, to weave this one up, and As a result, the weft is multiple different colors, which change down the length of it. And I'm going to make a bet that this one sells first because that's always the way it happens. This towel is a good example of the blending that I used in the warp. Now, here I used a yellow and then sort of a mustard color, and the pattern is completely lost in here because the yellow and the mustard are completely different, and then the weft is the same as one of those warps. Here, the colors are closer together, and we have a nice clear pattern, and here too, the colors are a little closer together, and a nice clear pattern. Here, the colors, the value is very different, and as a result, we have a scrambled pattern. It's not so obvious. And this is one of the ones where you take a second look to see if maybe there was a threading error. So overall, these 4 stripes, so these 2 are the same, these 2 are the same, and these 2 are the same, and they're the most successful in blending. And that's just because the 2 colors are very similar in value, not necessarily in color, but in value, and that's the important thing when you're blending colors. Also, there's 2 colors of blue in this warp, and the values are slightly off, but only slightly, and the colors themselves are very close. And that gives a nice sparkle in the warp. When using a very dark weft, the colors are not quite so obvious in the mix, like the separate colors. This one too, again, is the most obvious one, the center stripe. But this one's not so bad because there's such a dark weft compared to the warp. I think that it's very successful there. Here's where we can see a nice sparkle. The weft is purple and the warp is yellow and mustard, and so they're opposite each other in the color wheel. So there's quite a sparkle going on here. And again, these 2 look like closest to solid colors, but if you look closely, there's a real variation in the warp, and I like that. And I think these were, of course, were the 2 stripes that were most successful in the mixing, as well as the blue. Again, the middle. So I think the key here, if the colors are different in the value scale, I think maybe I should have done a predictable repeat rather than the random one that I have here. These worm wefts are so rich. This one's a fuchsia. Just gorgeous. And this one is a pumpkin spice. And just rich color. Very cool. And the blue is the only cool part, and it just sort of gives a little bit of variation to the warmth of it all. Which is, and this is the same pattern as this one, but completely different look just because of the weft that is used. The blue has dulled down the warm colors quite a bit, whereas the, say, pumpkin has really brightened them up. These 2 here are the same warp. Really hard to tell. And these 2 are the same warp stripe here as well. So I love how just changing up the weft makes a completely different look to each towel. So this project has given me a whole lot of information as far as color goes, and it's very useful for me in my future projects to decide which color schemes I'm going to go with, how I'm going to blend the colors in the warp. And it's also been very helpful for me to decide which treadlings are give the most impact for the amount of work that they've given me. So these are by far the simplest to treadle. And these ones have a different feel because they're boucle, so they feel a little bit rougher. And being cotton and linen, they're very absorbent. It seems to me that the white boucle works well on every type of towel that I've made so far. That even though it turns the colors to a pastel, it makes for a nice, fresh, light towel. So I'll probably be going through a lot of white boucle as I make a white boucle variation of every warp that I do. These tea towels are now in my store, so feel free to check out the link or drop right into my studio and take a look at them. A big thank you to my patrons whose continuing support helps me to keep creating these videos. Thank you for watching.